Hello and welcome back there. This is version 2 of the 4.5 add and subtract mixed numbers, textbook page 300 to 302. This one's going to be very similar to version 1, which I will be deleting once this one's posted, but you're going to see some shortcuts in here because apparently while I was completely up too late last night, I completely lost my brain and forgot to give you the shortcuts. So let's go ahead and get started. First things first, you want to make sure that you have everything that you see here. In the bottom left corner, you'll see a new little picture. It says, good mathematics is not about how many answers you know. It's how you behave when you don't know. So bring your smiley attitude, which you can see here with my smiley face math guy, and let's get started. The first thing we're going to do here is a mixed number review. So if you could go ahead and put that on your paper just like you see it here, I've identified the whole number as being 3. So you can see these 3 blocks that are cut into fourths. I've identified the numerator as being 1 because you have another block here that's cut into fourths and one of them is shaded, and then the denominator is 4 because all of the blocks are cut into fourths. So if you count them too, you can see that there are actually 13 total blocks that are shaded in. So 13 of them, and they're cut into fourths. So that's actually how you get your improper fraction as well that you see here in the bottom corner. And so you see that there in the bottom right corner, you see the 13 fourths. And again, that's because we have 13 shaded boxes and all of the big blocks are cut into fourths. On textbook page 300, go ahead and take a look there. We're going to look at our first page here. As you can see, I have already given you all of the notes right up front for this problem. It says, are the denominators in the fraction the same? So what you're going to be doing is when you're adding and subtracting mixed numbers, you're going to first ask yourself if the denominators in the fraction are the same. Since these denominators are both 9, then you want to go ahead and keep the denominator the same, which is 9. You're going to add or subtract the numerators of the fraction first, and then you're going to add, and in this case add, but it would be add or subtract the whole numbers as well. All right, I went ahead and corrected the notes so you want to as well. It says to add or subtract the whole numbers. So in this case, we're adding 7 plus 10 gives us 17. 4 plus 2 gives us 6, and we get 17 and 6/9. Then we're going to reduce that and simplify it by using 17 and 2/3. So what we've done here is divided them both by 3. So you can add that little notation there beside the 6 and the 9 that says divide by 3, divide by 3. Now we're going to move on to just a little bit of a reminder about how you're going to convert back and forth between mixed numbers and improper fractions. So here you can see change mixed number to improper fraction. It says don't forget MAD. So it's multiply, add, and denominator. So remember, if you're going to be changing a mixed number, which is 2 3/4, into an improper fraction, you're going to do that by first multiplying 4 times 2. So you're going to, if you could see me here with my blue marker, the 4 on the bottom times the 2, and you can see that that's what I have here in this blue block. Sorry, that's Rocky in the background crying. Hold on one second, Rock. And so 4 times 2 is going to give us 8, so we put an 8 right here, plus, and now the next piece that we're going to do here in red is going to be plus 3. So you'll see there's a plus sign there. So plus 3, 8 plus 3 is what's going to give us this 11, which you see right over here in our answer. So 8 plus 3 is 11, and then the part where it's keep the same or denominator is the 4. So we're just going to move that over. That was just a reminder on how to change from mixed numbers to improper fractions. And now you have another reminder on how to go from improper fraction to mixed number. All right, now you're looking at how to change an improper fraction back into a mixed number. So when you have 28 over 5, you're going to first change that into a division sign. That fraction bar, remember, means division. So 28 divided by 5 looks just like this down here in the blue. And then once you do that, 5 times 5 is 25. So I'm going to put a blue box around the blue box that's already there. So that whole number is what now becomes our whole number in our mixed number that you can see that I just pointed to there. Okay? And now, when we do 5 times 5 is 25, we're going to have a remainder of 3. That's why I have that pink R there. The remainder of 3 goes on top of your mixed number, and then the denominator, which was 5 to begin with, still stays 5. So that's just a refresher there on that too. Now the next screen that we're going to look at is going to give you some information about what you're going to do when the denominators are different. Now there are going to be 2 ways that I'm going to show you, and both are going to be important. You need to know how to do both. So at the top, or actually in the next space on your paper, you're going to write different denominators, and you're going to use the information that you have right here. Okay, so it says 8 5/6 minus 2 1/3. So there are going to be times when you are going to really need to change these into improper fractions. So it says use MAD to change both numbers to improper fractions. So we've done that here. 8 times 6 is 48 plus 5 is 53. divided by 6 or over 6, and then 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7, so 7 over 3. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to then rename one or both of the fractions so that they have a common denominator. All right, so what we're going to do is show that right here. So now you can see where they both have the denominator of 6. So down on the bottom, we multiplied by 2, and then of course on the top we already had 6. So now we have 53 6 and 14 6. So now what we need to do is to add or subtract the numerators. So 53 minus 14 gives us the 39 that you see there. Then we're going to keep the denominator the same. And then we're going to simplify. So when we keep the denominator the same, it's 6. And then to simplify, we're going to put that back into our mixed number. So it says 6 and 3/6, which would then be 6 and 1/2. So this is the standard way to work with improper fractions and mixed numbers. This is the number one go-to way. You'll never make a mistake here. Now, the next screen that I'm going to show you is going to give you a little bit of a shortcut method. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So it says another option, same problem, 8 and 5/6 minus 2 and 1/3. So the first thing that you're going to do is add or subtract the whole numbers. So 8 minus 2 is 6. Then you're going to rename the fractions. So when we rename the fractions to have a common denominator, we're going to change them like that. So you can see 1/3 becomes 2/6 and 5/6 stays 5/6. So now I'm just going to add or subtract the numerators, and 5 minus 2 gives me 3. And then I come up with this answer of 6 and 3/6, which is what we got before. And then when we simplify, we need to make it 6 and 1/2. So as you can see, you get the answer both ways. The only difference is there are going to be times when you really need to change it into an improper fraction to be able to work through the fraction the best way. So it's important that you know both ways. Now that you have it, go ahead and try the got it on your own now. Okay, sorry about that. So when we have the same denominator, we can just go ahead and add the whole numbers. So we get 6 plus 2 is 8. And then we are going to add the numerators. 5 plus 1 is 6, so 6/8. And then we need to simplify that. So it's going to be a total of 8. And when we divide them both by 2, all right, now you can see it's going to be 8 and 3/4. And then don't forget to put a box around your answer. So you should get 8 and 3/4 for that one. Now we're looking at B. As you can see for B, you have 5 and 1/5 and 2 and 3/10. Let's go ahead and use the easy method for this one and see how that works out, especially since this is addition. 5 plus 2 is going to give me 7, so I can go ahead and do that right away. And then off to the side, I want to rename this fraction up here. So 10 is going to be how I rename it. 5 times 2 gives me 10. 1 times 2 is 2. So now this will be 2/10. 2/10 plus 3/10 gives me 5/10. So I'm going to write 7 rather, and 5/10. But now, of course, just like before, we need to go ahead and simplify that. So that's going to be 7 and 1/2 because you're going to divide them both by 5. And don't forget to put a box around your answer. All right, let's look at C. So for C, you have 1 and 5/9 plus 4 and 1/6. So again, let's try the shortcut method here, again, especially because it is addition. So 4 plus 1 is 5. And now we're going to rename these fractions here. 9 and 6. 6 doesn't go into 9 equally, so now I'm going to start multiplying by 2. Remember the 2, 3, 5 trick. 9 times 2 gives me 18, and yep, 18 is actually common denominator for both. So now we're going to do 18 and 18. And let me actually go back a little. 18 and 18, here we go. And then we're going to show that we need to multiply by 3 here, multiply by 3 here, multiply by 2, and multiply by 2. Because what you're saying is to get from 9 to 18, I multiply by 2, and from 6 to 18, I multiplied by 3. So now we have to do the same on the top. 1 times 3 is 3, and 5 times 2 is 10. So now we've already added our whole numbers together, so now we add our fractions together. The numerator, 10 plus 3 gives me 13. So now I have 13/18. So my final answer here, because that can't be reduced any further, is going to be 5 and 13/18. All right, let's move on to D. For D, you have 5 and 4/5 minus 1 and 3/10. So you're going to go ahead and, again, 5 minus 1 is 4. Now, you just want to be careful because you may need to do the longer strategy where you have to rename it into an improper fraction. But first, we're going to try it. 5 minus 1 is 4, so we get 4 as our whole number. And then we can notice that our denominators are not the same, so we need to rename this fraction up here at the top. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so now what I've done is I've renamed that fraction at the top. So now we have 8/10 minus 3/10. 8 minus 3 actually gives us 5. So we're going to have 4 and 5/10. And now we're going to simplify that because we know that that's not reduced all the way. So now we are left with 4 and 1/2. And again, don't forget to box your answer. All right, so now we're going to be looking here. We have 13 and 7/8 minus 9 and 3/4. So for these problems, again, 13 minus 9, I can actually count up to subtract that. 9, 10, plus 3 is 4. So now I have a total of 4 down here for my whole number. And then we need to rename this fraction up here. So obviously 8 is a common denominator for both. So I'm going to change that to an 8. I multiply by 2 and multiply by 2. So now I get 6/8. And again, this was 7/8. So now what we really have is 7 minus 6, and 7 minus 6 leaves me with 1. So my final answer here will be 4 and 1/8. Now you're looking at F. So now you can see we have 8 and 2/3 and 1 and 1/2. So again, right away, because I should be able to work with this problem, and again, you have to be prepared at any time not to be able to do it the easy way. This is the easy way. 8 minus 1 is going to give me 7, and then we have to rename the fractions. Now we're going to have to rename them both, so we know that our common denominator here will be 6. So we're going to set them up like that. So now you can see we have 4/6 and 3/6. 4 minus 3 actually just leaves us with the 1. So now we have 7 and 1/6 as our answer. Don't forget to put a box around it. All right, now we're looking at textbook page 301. Things are going to get a little bit different here. All right, so example 3, I'm going to show you the way that they've shown you in the book, and then I'm going to go back to my original way of showing you with changing them into improper fractions. So in the book, they've asked you to look at it like this. So you can see here that I have 3 bars up at the top, and each bar is cut into thirds. So for that one, we have 2 holes, because notice our 3 chunks here and our 3 chunks here are cut, they're all filled in. So that's our 2 holes. And then we have 1/3, because 1 out of the 3 blocks is filled in here. And then we have 1 and 2/3. So again, 1 and then 2 out of the 3. So what they want you to do is they sort of want you to borrow from one of the holes. So one of the holes is worth 3 slices. So instead of it being 1/3, which you see over here on the left right there, now we're going to make it 4/3 because you borrowed 3 slices from the hole. So now you have 1 and 4/3 minus 1 and 2/3. So the 1 and 1 cancel out. 1 minus 1 is 0, and then 4 minus 2 is 2. So you're left with your answer of 2/3. However, on this next slide, you're going to see that we did it just the way we did it before, changing it into an improper fraction. So this is just like the first method that I taught you, and really what you should do. All right, so I've added that little note here that says change to improper fractions. So again, 2 and 1/3, 1 and 2/3, we're just going to change that to 7/3 and 5/3, and then you're left with 2/3. Now here's the tricky part. You notice those first 6 problems that we did were super easy for you to just subtract or add the whole numbers and then work with the fraction by itself. You're never going to really know right away whether or not it's going to be an easy problem or a hard problem. So as soon as you realize that you're going to have to borrow from the whole to make it so that you can work with it, that's when I would change it into the improper fraction. All right, so now you want to do the got it. Now I've set up a little diagram here for you because there wasn't really an example with a whole number minus a fraction. So what I've done is I have separated my 7. You have 7 holes, but because we're now going to be comparing it to 1 and 1/2, I've set up those 7 holes to show you that they're split into halves, but they still equal 7. So if you look at it, you still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you still have those 7 holes. And then down here you have 1 and 1/2, because that's 1/2 right here. So 1, and let's go ahead and erase that. So now we have 1 and 1/2. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 up top. So now what you want to notice is that what you're doing is you're taking away, you're going to go ahead and subtract out 1, which will be that one. So we're going to cross that out. And then you're going to subtract out 1/2, which is this guy right here. And that accounts for that guy right there. So now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1/2 left. So that is how you can set up that problem and work through that. So now you have an answer of 5 and 1/2. Go ahead and try the rest of those on your own now. All right, let's go ahead and look at the next one. So for H, you should have 5 and 3/8 minus 4 and 11/12. Now when you change these and they have a common denominator, you'll notice that it's not going to be easy like subtracting the numerator. So these are the problems where you have to change them into the improper fraction, as I showed you before. So that's the first thing we're going to do, is we're going to rename them. Notice I did that in red. And then with the blue, we're going to get a common denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Do the math up at the top, and this is what you come up with. So you should have come up with an answer of 11/24. So you just want to make sure that you know how to apply that. Now we're going to go ahead and look at I. So the first thing again that I needed to do here was rename these, make these into improper fractions, which I've done. And then we're going to go ahead and subtract them out. You get 44/5, and then you're left with 8 and 4/5. And now we're looking at J. This is another one of those tricky ones, the 8 minus 3 and 3/4. So I want you to think of it like this. This is another method for you. 8 minus 3 is going to give you 5. So you know that you have 5 when you do that. But then you want to think about 5 minus 3/4. Well, I know that if I take anything away from 5, it's going to be 4 as my whole number. Now, if I take 3/4 away, then I'm left with 1/4. So my final answer here is going to be 4 and 1/4. But what you really need to do, and what you can see here, is that you really need to go ahead and work backwards to make sure. So if you take your answer of 4 and 1/4 and you add it to the 3/4 that you have here, you should come up with 5. So let's look at that. The 4 is my whole number, but then 1/4 plus 3/4 gives me this 4/4. See that 4/4 right there? That makes a whole. So 4 plus the 1 whole gives me the 5. So you should, whoops, go back there. So you should be able to have it just like that so that you can go back and check and make sure. Okay, looking at the next problem now, we have 3 and 1/4 minus 1 and 3/4. So again, this is a problem where we're going to need to convert that into improper fractions. And then we get our final answer of 1 and 1/2 as shown here. And L will be the same way. This is, again, one of those whole problems. So first off, I can go ahead and subtract 16 minus 5. I'm left with 11, as you can see here. And then you know your answer is going to be 10 because 11 minus anything is going to be 10. And then you have 10 and you'll have 1/6 left. And as you can see down at the bottom, and I do want you to show this, 10 and 1/6 plus 5 and 5/6 would give you 16. 10 plus 5 is 15. 1/6 plus 5/6 gives you 6/6, which is a whole. So that gives you your 16. So now you're looking at textbook page 302. We have made it. So what I'd like you to do for example 4 is go ahead and you want to write example 4 and then you want to write combined, because that's the word that makes you know that this is going to be an addition problem. Now this is one of the easier ones. When you're adding 120 and 1/2 plus 40 and 1/3, this should be an easier problem where you can add the whole numbers. So 120 plus 40 is going to give you 160. And then 1/2 and 1/3, you can rename those to have a common denominator. And then you'll come up with your answer of 160 and 5/6 as shown below. The next thing that you want to do is head your paper. This is a new sheet of paper for your guided practice. You're going to head at textbook page 302. You're going to do numbers 1 through 4, and I'll be collecting that at the very beginning of class. Thank you for your patience. I'm so glad we were able to get this shorter version going on, and I will see you on Monday.